So now I would like to welcome our speaker. So Brent Sterling is the performance marketing manager at Shopify. So Brent is the social media manager at Shopify, and his experiences ranges in all forms of paid and organic social, as well as multi-channel strategy building for a number of verticals and industries that include SaaS, tech startups, direct-to-consumer brands, hospitality, and politics. Welcome, Brent.
Hi, thanks. Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So tonight we're going to talk about social media strategy and execution. This is kind of like a 101 brain dump of everything that I've kind of been through and kind of done, and I've condensed it down into as short as I can possibly do it. But it is 90 slides, so buckle up. This is a 101. It's not a full out, like, if you're a social strategist and you do this day in and day out, there's far more of this that, like, beyond what I'm going to talk about today, but it is kind of built in a way that allows you to, if you're a founder or if you're like a solopreneur and you need to do all of this stuff, like, how can you do it in an hour or two a week? Now you can scale all of this stuff out and hopefully it kind of sets you up for success. All right. So with that being said, who am I and why should you listen to me? One, you don't have to. It's fine. No one is an expert at social. Like, I'm okay at it for sure. But there are other differing expert opinions on what I'm going to show tonight. And if you have your own, like if you're an influencer or whatever, and you want to be like, this is how I do it, that's cool. Like, you can totally do it. And the thing is that with most of social, you need to guess and test. So getting back to my original question that I asked myself, who am I and why should you listen to me? So a bit of my background: I'm currently the performance marketing manager at Shopify for social. That is a fancy way of saying that I spend money on social media. So I run all of our ads globally. So right now I run in 90 countries in 13 languages across 8 platforms. And I have a team that reports to me that is far better at this than I am, to be completely honest. You guys know, if you've ever had a boss, you're like, they're kind of terrible. So how did I get to here? I have a history degree, which makes complete sense to be a marketing person. I graduated, I moved to Japan for 4 years. I taught high school English there. I realized that teaching is not for me, but here I am. Came back. I took a couple different kind of random jobs. I sold cell phones for a little while. I did some random stuff, but I really got into social media because where I lived in Japan was where the earthquake happened in 2011. And that kind of propelled me into using social and blogging and pieces like that. And it kind of turned into this bigger piece where I got sent back to Japan to do PR after the earthquake. And at the same time, a buddy of mine started a bar. And I was like, what are you doing on the internet? And he was like, nothing. We're going to open the bar. And I was like, no. You need to do all these things. So I started managing his social. I set up his web presence. And after about 6 months, he was like, yo, you could probably get paid to do this. And I was like, really? So because no one was hiring for social, this was like 2012. So yes, I am old. In about 2012, like, nobody was really hiring for social. So instead I created my own agency because it was the easiest way to go out and convince people to give me their money to run their social. So through that, I've done pretty much anything that you can think of. Off the hop, it was kind of like, who will pay me to do this? So I did financial advisors. I've done tattoo shops. I ran the Toronto International Tattoo Convention. And through, I got into like the tech space and started dealing with tech startups. Then I started doing like apparel companies. Through that, I ended up at the DMZ, where I was the social media marketer for the DMZ. So I ran their social as well as advised kind of like the broader Ryerson community and the startups that were in the DMZ space. I still continued to freelance. So I kind of picked up like political and government clients, and kind of my portfolio expanded, I guess I could say. From there, I moved to Shopify, where I started as a social specialist on the brand and comms side. So running the organic side of social at Shopify for a year and a half, 2 years. And I scaled our presence internationally. And then I moved to the growth team, where I've been for coming up on like 3 years, I guess. And now I'm running performance marketing. So obviously today, what I'm going to focus on a lot of is the organic side of social, and like setting your brand up for success. I do have a couple slides at the end where I talk about paid, but it's important to do the organic stuff first. So let's hop into it. But before we start talking about how to build a strategy, we need to get a couple things out of the way. Why use social media? You're all here, so you already know that you should probably be using it in some way, shape, or form. But the thing that I tell most people is that it touches every stage of your funnel, right? It doesn't matter if you're a D2C brand, or if you're a SaaS brand, or if you're a restaurant, right? You still have a funnel. You still need the awareness piece. You still need the like conversion, or the consideration, then the conversion, and then you want loyalty. And social, you have to keep in mind that you're speaking to all of those people at the exact same time, especially organic social, right? You can't control like who's going to see your message. Same with when I get into audiences. So here are like a couple random reasons, just in case you're trying to convince somebody like, yo, we should be doing social. You can connect and engage with anybody, right? B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter, because it's all P2P. You're not P2P like person to person. It levels the playing field. You have the same tools available to you that I do at Shopify. Like, it's the exact same thing. Now, I might have more money so I can get more eyeballs. The positive of social, though, is that if you provide value, you win. If I have terrible content and I dump a bunch of money behind it, it doesn't help me, right? Whereas if you have really good content and you don't need money, because social kind of can create this like virality loop for you. Quick note though, you'll never go viral. It's not a marketing strategy. Never say you'll go viral, or like, we're just going to go viral with this. That's not a thing. Brand evangelist identification and creation. You can go out and find the people that like will ride or die for your brand. Co-promotion and SEO, it does help with your search stuff. And we are going to talk about websites before I get into the actual social stuff. It adds brand legitimacy, especially for startups. Like, if you don't have a company page for your company on LinkedIn, and I look you up and I click it, my experience is terrible, right? Because I click to where you work and it doesn't show me anything. It just shows me your profile in a list. That's a really bad experience for somebody, and that's a very bad first experience, right? So showing that you have a social channels, that they are active, actually signals to investors that you're invested. You get distribution of your content, and it's free with an asterisk of like, it's super time consuming. To do it well, it's super time consuming. So why not use social media? Because this is an actual thing. Because it requires strategy and professional communication. It's time consuming. It's constant learning and monitoring. Algorithms change, new platforms pop up, old ones that you invested in die, and you're like, what? It's a grind. Like, organic social is a grind, because you need to consistently be blasting content out, right? Not blasting, but like, you need to have consistency in your channels, and that takes work if you want it to be well received. Like I said, you will not go viral, and the internet is harsh. Like, there are trolls everywhere. Do not feed them, but at some point they will come for you. Okay. So with all that being said, let's talk about your website, because your website is your hub, right? It is where your social is going to drive to, unless maybe you're a D2C brand and you're only going to build, say, like, I'm just going to sell on Instagram. I'm going to sell my Galaxy lights on Instagram or whatever, right? And yeah, you can do that, but ideally what you want to do is build a website because it's the one thing that you can really own, right? Everything through social is rented. If an algorithm changes, if you get banned, all those things, but nobody's going to ban your website. I mean, let's hope nobody's banning your website. If your website's getting banned, you got bigger problems. No one's going to ban your website. And the only two really things that you own are your domain and your email list, right? So keep that in mind. Like, social isn't a kind of solution to everything. Social can pour gasoline on a well-oiled machine. I don't think that analogy makes sense, but you guys get what I mean, right? Okay. So first we're going to run through like a couple things to do with your website, because if your website is trash, your social is going to drive to a trash site that will then provoke trashy experiences for people, and they will not enjoy you. It's the internet, right? Like, people make snap decisions. So having your brand and the way that your brand is perceived on your site locked in is super important. So one, I get startups all the time that tell me like, we rank first for our name, because that's what you want to do first, right? You want to rank first for your name. And if you've thought about a name, and Google it first before you actually name your business something, because if you name your business something where it's difficult for you to rank, then it gets increasingly more difficult for your business to be found on a regular basis. So search for yourself in an incognito window. If you're using Chrome, you like right click and you open an incognito window. It's a fresh search. Google runs the internet and they want to show you what you want to see. So if you've been on your site 1,000 times in the last month and you search it when you're signed in to, say, Chrome, you're going to see what you want to see, which is your site. And a lot of times when people do this and they search in an incognito window, they realize like, oh man, I am not first. That's bad. Make sure you have a locked in like site description. So the meta title and the meta description that you see here. So Storm and Leaf is what I kind of use it as an example. When I first started at Shopify, this was because I'm a hipster. I started an organic vegan deodorant company called Storm and Leaf, because we figured, why not make it sound like the most hipster thing it could possibly be. So this was like our site, and then our social shows up, right? But the site description is what you want people, when they read it, they want to understand what they're going to see from that site and like what it does. If you ram it full of keywords, Google will maybe index it, but then eventually they'll realize, oh, this sentence makes no sense to anyone. So you want it to have keywords in it that you want to focus on, but you also want to actually try and tell people what it is you do, right? This is the very first time, like if you tell me what your company is, the first thing I'm going to do is Google it. You want it to show up like I have here on this slide. You want to show up with like, all right, here is my like site and here's my social. And you want to dominate that whole like first page, right? A responsive design. Everybody's been on a site that doesn't really work on your phone, and you're like, it is a trash experience. You don't want whoever's coming to your site, your customers, your investors, whoever, to have a bad experience. So you have to make sure that your site is responsive. And that means that it works on mobile and it works on desktop just as well. Navigation, it shouldn't take more than 2 clicks for someone to find a thing on your, like if I get to your site, it shouldn't take me more than 2 clicks to get wherever I want to go. URL discrepancies, this is like having the H1 tags on your page, like the title of your page, match the actual URL. There are a couple ways that you can go around this and do different things, but what I'm saying is if it's yourdomain.com/team and you title that page About Us, Google does not like that. Links off site, make sure that the links off of your site actually open in a new tab. If they open in the same tab, like say you push me to your Facebook page and it opens in the same tab, well, even if I look at your page, maybe I decide I don't like it, I'm not hitting back. My brain is already tied to like, oh, I'm on Facebook, I should click the big like F, and then it's going to show me like, oh, Susie went out on the weekend, that's great for her. Like, and that's not what you want your customers to do, right? You want to at least maintain your presence in their browser. Optimize image titles for search. Too many people upload images to their site called like DSC _04598721. just write like your brand name and maybe what you do in there, so that potentially when people do image searches, they can come across it. Um, okay, moving on. Social media icons, make sure that you have them. If you don't have them on your site, I don't know that your social exists. Like if I find you, say, through Twitter, but I like to follow brands on Instagram, um, then you should have all your icons there, right? Social sharing, if you have a blog, which you should have, and hopefully I'll convince you of that by the end of this, have it, make it easy for me to share it. Make it easy that it's like one click and I can tweet it out. Um, because nobody wants to like copy the URL and then paste it into their Twitter and then write a whole message. Like sometimes they just want to quick share it. Open Graph. This is like the thing that I would die on any marketing hill for. Open Graph is this image on the left, right? It is what tells any social network or Slack or anywhere that you see an actual like when a link is shared and it's kind of populated this way with like an image that's full width and the right size, because everybody's seen a broken one of these too, where a site gets shared and there's no like image that's associated with it. So make sure that your open graph is like locked in. You want to have an image that's 600 by, or sorry, 1200 by 628. You want to have a title that's generally less than 45 characters, and you want to have a description that generally goes under 95. You can go over with the headline up to 100 characters, but then it cuts off your description. So you want to make sure that all of those things are kind of there, and that when somebody sees it, at least that's the piece of your brand that you can control, right? Even if, you know, I share it and my mom's not even going to click on it if it doesn't look enticing to her, right? So open graph and your metadata are two different things. Generally, if you don't have your open graph sorted out, it'll pull from your metadata, um, but it won't pull an image. So sorting yourself out for search and then sort yourself out for social. Um, Twitter cards are the open graph of Twitter. If you sort out open graph, you're fine. If you want to go the extra mile, you can set up Twitter cards. Ensure that you have pixels for retargeting. If you're ever going to spend any dollars on any social channel or on any paid anything, make sure that you have pixels and tracking in place on your site well ahead of you actually doing that, because dropping a brand new pixel on your site the day you're about to run ads is a really bad time, because none of these networks will actually know what a landing page view looks like or what an add to cart looks like or what a checkout looks like or any of those things. So the longer you wait to deploy like a Facebook pixel on your site, the harder it is to spend on those channels. The last couple pieces here are like design and layout. Make sure that it looks good, you know, and don't ask, like I say this about design and about copy, right? Like the first line I read on your site should be the most accessible sentence about your business, right? Even if I'm not your end customer, you want everyone to be able to read it and have a rough idea of what it is. And that's only because maybe my mom ends up on your site and she thinks that it's great for me, but if she doesn't know what your site does, then she's not going to send it to me. So you have to make it super accessible for everyone to be able to understand at least roughly what it is you do. Then go out and find people that can actually like roll through your site and then ask them like, what do you think? Like the line that I go with is like, don't ask your mom to read your copy, ask my mom, because she doesn't know you and she doesn't care, right? Asking your friends and them being like, yeah, this is amazing. Try and find somebody that talks shit, basically. Like go and try and find someone that will crap on your site, because that's what you need, right? You don't need somebody telling you it's the best thing they've ever seen, when you don't have any data to actually back that up. Just try and find somebody that hates it. If you can't find somebody that hates it, sweet, you got a winner. Finally, Google Search Console. Sign up for this, go and like log in, put your domain in. It tells Google like, hey, I want you to index this site on a regular basis. It'll also tell you where the issues are around your site. so that you can fix them, right? If it's like site speed or performance or anything that's going to hurt your search rankings, then you want to try and fix that. Okay, with all that said, social strategy. These are like the subheads of a social strategy that I would write out. Now we're not going to cover all of them, but I wanted you guys to be able to at least be like, oh, okay, these are all the things that I should really think about. But the main three are goals, target segments, and content themes, because that's really all you need for any social strategy, right? And most of this is going to be pretty easy for you to sort out, right? What are your marketing strategy goals? What are your business goals? That just creates like a lovely pink hue on my face. Look at that. I hope you guys are all basking in this pink hue. Okay, sorry. So strategy goals. What do you want to do? What do you want your business to do? What does your business do, right? Like, what are the things? So are you attracting users and clients? Are you positioning your company as the go-to for X? Are you promoting company successes in your people? Are you creating brand awareness? Are you attracting potential business partners and sponsors? And then finally, like the last one should pretty much be on everybody's list, is like become a thought leader in a target vertical or market. Now, you don't want to become like the Gary V of whatever, because that's just a bad time. But you should want to kind of dominate your category, right? And not that you're going to go out and just crush it off the hop, but the goal should be that you become the trusted name in X, right? Okay, so target segments. You want at least 3 goals, right? Make sure that you have, and write them all down, because you want to think about all of those goals and all the target segments when you get to your content themes. So target segments are like, all right, who are the people that you need to hit to achieve those goals? So if you want to get new users or clients and you want to get investors, then you definitely have like users as one target segment, but also investors as another target segment, or potential like influencers or any of those things. So you go ahead and write these down. These first 2 things are relatively simple, right? Like everybody's going to have a rough idea of who their ideal customer is, who other pieces that they may need for the business, as well as what they're trying to do. So the last piece though is like your content themes. And this is the stuff that you're going to share to social on a regular basis, right? This is the stuff that provides value to your target segments and achieves a goal. And this could be like news, updates, blogs, tips, tricks, all of those things. The promotion of your partners, the community news in your kind of space, right? If there's like a meetup or a virtual meetup, anything about your product on a regular basis, and then transparency into what you're doing. Like this, I think this one for startups especially is really, really powerful if you can do it right. Because if you can bring people along your journey, but not like, you don't need to share everything, but if you can tell them the wins and like what you're excited about through your social, then people will become like loyal to your brand, or they'll at least develop like a brand affinity. The other notes to think of are like, look at what works for your competitors, because this is the easiest way for you to figure out exactly what you should do or what you shouldn't do, because you will hate everything that you see from your competitors, right? Go find your biggest competitor. You'll look at their social and you'll be like, this is gross. Great. Perfect. How would you do it better? Like what's the thing that you would do that would be better than that? Right? Can you take what they're already doing? Like, it's marketing. So people are going to steal from you and you're going to steal from other people. That's the biggest like win you can have in marketing, is when people steal your ideas. And it's terrible when it happens to you, but also it tells you that like you're doing a good enough job that somebody felt the need to steal it. And then the other thing to think about is like, what is the unique value that you can provide through social to your target segments? There are a bunch of kind of examples of this. But you want to find that like sweet spot of like, only you guys can do this and only you can do it well. An example that I always use, because it's like just the easiest, most accessible one, is I was working with a social media analytics company called Crowdbabble that no longer exists. But they used to, they would allow people to compare their Instagram channel to other Instagram channels, and it did a bunch of Instagram analytics and all those things. So what they started doing on social was they started putting out like, here is, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump on Instagram, like what filters they use the most, what they're like how many likes they get per post, how many impressions, like all of those things, right? That's because what they were trying to do is hit this, where it's like they would share a thing, it would reach their target segment, which is generally like social media people like myself, and then achieve a goal of like bringing those social media people over to be like, whoa, what is this? Like, what's this platform here? Then I go on their site, I drink their Kool-Aid, I give them the monies, right? That's kind of what you always want. You attract somebody through some kind of unique value that you can through social. They go to your site, they drink your Kool-Aid because it's a dope site that you have done all the things that I had on the previous slides for. And then they give you the monies. So, okay, platforms. I'm going to roll through these relatively quick because you guys know them at this point. Maybe you don't, and this is where to be and to maybe be. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, why is Instagram over on the right-hand corner? Like, why would Instagram not be there? I'm on Instagram all the time. All my customers are on Instagram. What I'd say to that is just chill. Okay. So definitely have a blog. It helps with SEO. I'm going to run through all these things. Definitely have Facebook. I know that like no one uses Facebook. I don't even use Facebook. But people are on Facebook, right? And potentially your customers are there. Twitter, Google My Business, and LinkedIn. Now, why only these ones are in the definitely category? Because there you can share links. The other ones are imagery based, right? You can fire off a quick one-liner and share a Globe and Mail article. That's secondary content, right? Meaning you didn't create it, but it still allows you to you still get that sentence or two where you can show like a brand personality, right? You can talk about this thing. You can tag the city of Markham or whatever their actual Twitter handle is or something like that. And you could share that post from the National Post, the article from the National Post, and tag them and tag Tiffany, and then maybe Tiffany shares it too, so you can reach more people. The other ones on the other side, like Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, and YouTube, are harder. It's harder to create content for them, and dependent on what your company is, you might not be like in that visual game. I would say that eventually you're definitely going to want to have an Instagram. Snapchat probably not, because you got to make a movie every day, but that comes with like, all right, can you do motion? Can you do still imagery that's going to speak to what you do and actually engages somebody well? If you only have an hour a week, maybe not. So, okay, let's roll through these really quickly. Blog. Positives are endless, right? You can build thought leadership here, SEO pieces. You can go out and kind of try and rank for specific keywords, and like take advantage of search intent. So having one is a great thing. The negatives of the blog are that you actually have to write blogs, and that you have to write them well, and they have to be well researched, and they have to hold an audience, right? And those aren't easy things to do, especially on the internet when there are already so many things to read. Facebook. Like I said, lots of people are there, right? And Facebook has the best ads platform out there. It's head and shoulders above any of the other platforms. The hard part is like, are they ruining the entire world? I don't know. Okay. Negatives, it's pay to play. It's hard to get likes. Their algorithm's always changing. You're eventually going to hit a stage with like a Facebook page where all of a sudden you're used to hitting 400 people every single time you post, and you'll reach 1,000 likes or something, and all of a sudden you only hit 30, and you're like, what's happening? And that's kind of how they trap you. And it's pay to play, right? Then they're like, pay us to hit more people, and you're like, but I'm used to hitting so many more people. Twitter is my jam. Don't even try and argue with me. What are your thoughts on newer platforms like Clubhouse or TikTok? I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. Don't you worry, I got you. Okay, Twitter is dope because everybody that you could potentially want, or any connection that you want, is probably on Twitter, right? Especially if you're in like the tech space, everyone's on Twitter. And the beauty part of Twitter is that you can use it to do everything, right? You can use it to create relationships with business development side. You can use it as like community building. You could do it for media relations. Say the article by the National Post today that was written about the city of Markham, you could share that and tag the journalist that wrote it and write a very nice thing. And then that journalist goes like, oh, what's this thing? And then they go to your Twitter account, and then they're like, oh, this is a very well thought out like Twitter profile with a link to the URL, and it provides value. I will follow and or click to their website and then drink the Kool-Aid and then give them the stories, right? That's the positive of Twitter, as long as you can do it authentically. And I'll get into, I'm getting ahead of myself. Negatives of Twitter. It's hard to be seen. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to retweet a thing about Clubhouse after this that I found yesterday about why Clubhouse is going to fail. You guys can go in. Yeah, like they can. I mean, I get click-throughs all the time. It just depends on how well you position. Sorry, I'm answering the question in the chat. If you guys don't have the chat open in the side right now, you're missing out, because I'm doing the presentation and reading the chat at the same time. What? I haven't even started drinking yet, but I do have an unopened beer in front of me, guys. Okay. Once I hear the 5-month-old not crying anymore upstairs, that's when I'm going to crack it. And then let's hope that the 4.5-year-old does not come in. I apologize. I should have brought that up earlier. There are children running around in this house. Shout out to my wife, taking care of them. She never watches these, but I always try and give her a shout out. Okay, sorry. Let's go. Let's go back. Sorry. Okay. So negatives of Twitter are that it's hard, and if you don't get what like hashtags are, and like just don't use hashtags is the safer way to go, right? They're not going to help you. They're going to hurt you more than anything else. But I do get into a whole execution piece. So again, way ahead of myself. Instagram. You guys know, lots of people are there. All of you have Instagram. It is kind of the place to be. The negatives are that every single one of you has taken this photo right here. At some point, all of you have taken this photo and put it on your Insta or probably your stories and been like, working hard on a Sunday. Like, I fucking hate that shit. But like Instagram is where everybody is, right? Now, the hard part is that like ads are more expensive. One, if you're running Instagram ads from the Instagram app on your phone right now, go in and turn that shit off. That is not the way that you should run ads. Everybody they're like, I'm going to run Instagram. It's the most expensive way, worst way to like spend your money. You just run out into your yard or outside and light it on fire. It's the same thing, right? If you're like chasing clout, fine, I guess, but it's the worst way to spend money. Yeah, you should feel attacked, but like it's really good advice. It's really, no one I know has ever seen a return from running Instagram ads, because the targeting is like, what you want to do is get your Facebook page and your Instagram account and put them together, build a Facebook business manager, build the ads account from there, and then actually use all the tools that Facebook has in order to run, because Facebook owns Instagram, just in case anybody doesn't know that. So you can run on Facebook and on Instagram at the same time. And what it does is it actually goes out and finds the best people for you to do the thing that you want it to do. Again, getting ahead of myself. I have Facebook ad slide. But don't do that. Go turn it off right now. You're burning money. Okay, LinkedIn, gotta have it. Who scared to connect Instagram to Facebook? Well, no, don't cross your posts. Like, don't share from Instagram to Facebook. What you want to have is a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and then you use them independently. But through Business Manager and an Ads Manager on Facebook, then you can run from both of those. So you can run an image and like your link to your site or whatever on both platforms, and you can dynamically use your creative differently. That's why when you see Instagram story ads, sometimes you see them and they're a square, and that's because they didn't build the 9:16 version of it. So the positives of LinkedIn are that it's business based. There's no limitation on page reach. It shows legitimacy. Shout out to my wife coming in right now. Thank you for taking care of the children, dear. Look, people are clapping. There's a person clapping. They appreciate you. Just don't turn the dryer on though. I'm in the basement, guys. Okay, sorry. This has been like weird offshoots so far. Okay, LinkedIn, gotta have a page, right? If I click to your profile and then I click through to the page and there's no about, there's no section that tells me what your business does, there's no nothing. Because have you ever clicked on somebody that has just listed that they work at a place, and then it, like, the best one is when people say like that they work at freelance, and then, because not smart, and then you click it because there's no company called freelance, and you click it and it just shows you all the other dum-dums that listed freelance as the place that they work. That is not a wicked first impression, right? So like if I connect with you on LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, where do they work? And you have no like boilerplate, like this is what we do at this company with a logo and all of that stuff, that immediately tells me like, whoo, this is a little sketchy. Okay, LinkedIn negatives is that you can only use it sparingly as a business. It's going to be hard to get followers, but what you do is you share from your company page, and then you share that from your personal account, and that will like bump it up. And if you are a little bit spicy on LinkedIn, it does well. For examples, go see my LinkedIn. Okay, it's difficult to convert users, like I was saying, and your content needs to be professional to a point. Google and YouTube positives. So Google runs the internet, so you want to be friends with them. Despite, I know that I said like YouTube you shouldn't do unless you're going to have content, but there was an asterisk beside it. If you go back and look, I swear, you should create your, yeah, there you go. Thanks, Dave. Okay. Now I'm going to have like all these views and stuff on my LinkedIn. I'm going to be like, what's happening? Okay. Sorry. YouTube. Create a YouTube account, fully branded out. Put in all the, even if you're never going to upload videos, because what you can do in YouTube is put in all of your other links. So put in the link to your Twitter account, to your website, to all of your things. That also tells Google all of these links go together, right? Setting up a Google My Business account as well and linking it to your YouTube. Google My Business is the thing that when you search for a local business, and on the right hand side of Google it shows that like big huge, like, here are the hours this restaurant is open. That's Google My Business. When you search on Google Maps, that's Google My Business. So if you ever plan on having a physical space, even if right now it's your mom's basement, setting up as like a brand or something on Google My Business really helps your like SEO pieces. Okay, what are the negatives of YouTube? Is like video content is really hard, and like video content that's engaging through YouTube is even more difficult. Okay, the rest. I don't even have Clubhouse on this list, so I should fix that, but I'm gonna roll through these kind of quickly, and then we can pause on them. Pinterest, if you are selling to women, the intent to buy on Pinterest is through the roof comparative to every other platform. I would say that Instagram is probably catching up, but a lot of people are on Pinterest like getting ideas, and it does over index into women. So if you're selling to women, and then probably have a Pinterest account. Uh, Snapchat as a business, like I've run Snapchat accounts for how I got my job at Shopify. I had to apply through Snapchat. That's how long I've been here. Um, but like it's hard. You have to make a movie every day and then it just disappears into the ether. That's crazy. Um, Tumblr, it has meme lords and 12-year-olds sharing gifs. I don't know. Reddit, only if you're real sure. Reddit is full of trolls and like the hardcore of the internet, right? Definitely don't go in as a brand, go in as yourself, use a subreddit and like build your yourself as like a person that's trustworthy within that subreddit before you just go hawking your random stuff because they will obliterate you, especially if you're in like the I almost said steroid space. I meant like the like athletic kind of like workout space. Those guys will come for you. Okay, WeChat, WhatsApp, Messenger, like one-to-one messaging is definitely becoming a big thing. And then the next big thing, oh, TikTok. I skipped TikTok. TikTok, I think, is great if you can do the video content, right? Like, I think if you can do video content, then you should be on all these platforms, but you have to be able to do it well. And I think that the 9:16 ratio is kind of like that's your Instagram story ratio, right? The more platforms that start to adopt it, the more you can kind of cross platforms, right? You could take your TikTok and put it on an Instagram story. So I'd say that TikTok's worth experimenting with. I think that what happens a lot of the time though is that people get a little bit of success with one video, and then they just assume like, oh, every one I do after this, and they chase it, right? Like you're like, oh wow, my first video got 180 likes. That's so many. Like that's so many views. Way better. I'm going to keep building TikToks, and you get stuck into this hole of like, I'm going to try and crowbar TikTok into my business. If you can see a clear way to pair like trends on like the best example that I've seen from Shopify, and I even when we started on TikTok with the organic team did, I was like, this probably isn't the best idea. And I spend the most time on TikTok. It is out of all social platforms, TikTok is the best. But it's just my wife and I like sharing, like, look at what they're doing with these kids. Like, we should feed our kids those snacks. The best one that I've seen is like when the ocean spray thing kind of took off. They did this whole like background of how Ocean Spray is a small bit. It's a collective of small businesses that together like come together to create this company, right? And it did really really well because it was kind of on the nose at the time of like, oh, this is going viral. Everybody's buying Ocean Spray everywhere. How do you pair that back to say like Shopify? Which is a hard thing to do because we're a commerce platform. So it's not, you can't really, if you're like a D2C brand, it might be a little bit easier. The way that I've been thinking about like, because I'm running ads on TikTok, but the way that I think that we're going to end up approaching this more along the lines of like getting a creator to, and we've been doing this too, is like find testimonials of people that already have like clout. But that means you got to pay for it. So you kind of got to be sure. I would say like start small and kind of see what you can do. Clubhouse. So I use Android. There's that. So I don't have, I mean, I have a Clubhouse account, but I've never been on it. The hard part is that I think Clubhouse is live and I think that it's hype right now. There was a thread the other day that I will retweet after this that was amazing about like how Clubhouse will ultimately crash and burn. And it's funny, but it's also potentially true. I think that you could try and hop on it and make sense out of it, but only as an individual. I think if you tried to get on there as a brand right now, it would not go well for you. Like, who's the brand? There's still got to be a person talking. So you can't be like, hi, I'm X brand. I think if you can get into a room with some people that have a following, and get pulled up on stage and say something really, really witty or interesting or whatever, maybe. But what do you, then you're going to plug your company? It's a stretch, right? I think that you'd put more time into it than you would get a return from, if that makes sense. And that's my first take on Clubhouse ever. At least recorded anyway. Okay, channel creation and perception. Oh, there you go. Thank you, dude. That is the tweet. It is very good. All right. So this is, I'm using Twitter as an example here. But this kind of like, it's overall how you should build your channels, right? So what do people think of when they see this, right? Like what happens in your subconscious? Well, you look at it this way. Is this legitimate or spammy? How many people are they following? Are the blue check mark? How much influence do they have? What is the ratio between their followers and following? And then how long have they been on this platform? How much engagement do they have with it, right? Like what's going on here? And like, do these other numbers make sense? So obviously this is an old screenshot of a Shopify Twitter account. But then there's a description here that says like, join the best of over 500,000 Shopify merchants selling online, in store, everywhere in between. For assistance, reach out to Shopify support. That tells you what we do, right? That tells you what we do and kind of what you can expect from this, right? This is the stuff that we're going to talk about. That's what you want to do with all of your accounts too. Because if I land on your Instagram profile or whatever, you don't want to be following 9,000 people and have 7,000 followers or even 9,000 followers, because that just tells me that you do a follow for follow thing and you actually haven't like legitimately built your audience, right? You don't want to be following 0 people because that tells me you're an asshole. Like you want to keep you want to keep in mind every single aspect of every profile that you have, so that when people land on it, they go, oh, this is cool, and potentially they follow you, right? Or they click to your website, they drink your Kool-Aid, they give you the monies. One of the two. Your profile page is how people will form a perception of your brand. So, oh man, here we go. Yeah, this is being recorded, but you didn't miss much. It was fine. It was fine. The rest of the people here are just like, it wasn't very good. It's about website stuff. Okay. Engagement with your post will tell people like how much, I almost said clout. Like they'll tell you if you're legit, right? People are going to look and they're going to say like, oh, you have 4,000 followers on Twitter, but the last 3 tweets that you put out got 0 likes. That tells me like you bought them, right? Like, and that's even if you're not doing this, you're doing this every time you look at somebody's social profile, right? Like you're doing it subconsciously in your mind. You can tell off the hop if this is true or not. And then cadence is key too, because people are going to look like, when did you post last, right? If you posted last 4 weeks ago, you're dead. The internet you're over, right? If you posted an hour ago, 2 hours ago, and 4 hours ago, too much. I don't want to follow you, right? You want to be in that like sweet spot where you're engaging and pushing stuff out, but not one way or not to the furthest ends of the spectrum. Okay. Here's my like shout out to like people that are following 0 people. But obviously, like if you're Eminem, you can do it. If you're Kanye, fine, like follow 0 people, who cares? But if you're a brand, don't follow 0 people. You look like an asshole. So setting up for social, you want to use Hootsuite or another service to like monitor keywords on things like Twitter. You probably want to look for a like scheduling platform too, so that you can actually just go and schedule all your content out. You want to set up pages to watch on Facebook, because it'll give you at least a little bit of a background on like what are the other pages that are out. Like go and find your competitors and put them in your pages to watch category. Don't overfollow. I kind of covered this already with the follower ratio. And then checklist, make sure you have your imagery, make sure you have your description, make sure you have your website link, make sure you have usernames that are the same. And people always ask like, hey, what happens if my name's already taken? Why did you name your business the name is already taken for. So, and then, but also, if your name is taken, then I apologize. That's not what I just said. You don't have to worry about that. But you want to try and have the same usernames on all of your platforms, so that one, it's easy for people to find you, and two, when people do cross the streams, because some people like have their Instagram share to Twitter or whatever, you want them to tag you on both platforms, right? The example I always use is like, I have way more followers on Twitter than I do on Instagram. So if I tag you on Instagram and I'm not smart and I decide, oh, I'm going to share my Instagram post directly to Twitter, which is not a thing you should do as a brand, you still get tagged on Twitter too, right? And you reach far more people because I have a far larger following. Okay, execution. Woo. I think we're like an hour, right? Everybody feeling okay? Everybody's all right? I mean, none of you have cameras. Yeah, the people with cameras on. What's up? Yeah. Okay. Hi. Thank you. I at least get like human interaction. Otherwise, I'd be sitting in a basement just yelling at a screen. My wife might come down and just leave me straight up. Okay. So execution. Tell. Yeah. Yes. There. Yeah. That. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yes. This presentation is being shared. Okay. All right. So execution. I think it's there. Okay. There we go. It's time, guys. Okay. Tell different stories on different platforms if you can. Now, what this means is like, don't share the same content to each of your platforms at the exact same time. That being said, you can, and it's fine, right? Like you can totally take, say you have a piece of content and you want to share it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Pinterest, whatever, go to town, do it. Now, don't have it auto share to all of those channels, right? Do not cross the streams, because Instagram is different than Facebook, and Instagram is different than Twitter, and Twitter is different than Pinterest. So you can even put the same message out there, just craft it so that it makes sense for the channel. When you auto share it from one channel to another, it looks real bad, right? Like, especially if you're using usernames on Instagram and then you have it automatically shared to your Facebook page, those usernames don't get carried over. So it just looks weird. And then when you dump a bunch of hashtags on the end of your Instagram post and then it gets posted on a Facebook, what? Right? Like, that's a bad experience for somebody. And then someone that looks at, say, your Facebook page and they're like, oh, I'm considering this brand, and they just see a billion hashtags like blasted on the last post, they immediately go like, that looks spammy. So even if, say you can go out and you're going to create 3 pieces of content every week, or you're going to find 3 pieces of content, right? If either you're creating them or you're using secondary content, that's fine. But you can even say like, all right, I'm going to post Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'm going to put content piece A, like I'm going to go ABC on Twitter, but I'm going to go CBA on Instagram, and I'm going to go BCA on whatever one I didn't say. But you get it, right? Like, switch them up. When to post. This is, so the burrito principle is not my idea, but it's an idea that I've kind of stolen. Also, though, this is the best picture that I have in this deck, guys. All right, this is the peak of the mountain right now. It doesn't get better than this, because look at this lovely piece. Okay, burrito principle is you share when people would eat a burrito, right? Breakfast burrito, lunch burrito, after work burrito, and then like late at night, laid in bed burrito, because everybody eats those, right? It kind of loses its steam at that part. But that's at least a framework to work with. And I'm not saying share 4 times a day. What I'm saying is try those times out, right? Think about it in that, especially in like North America, you have this 3-hour time window between like East Coast and West Coast. So depending on what your brand is doing, you may find that like 12 p.m. is better, because you actually hit that morning commute on the West Coast and you share at lunch on the East Coast, right? And then people in Central Time like fuck them, I guess. I don't know. But what you want to do is like try and mix around your times, because what you will find is that different times elicit a different engagement rate. Um, and like, and things will change over time. When I was at the DMZ, we used to always share stuff on a Sunday night at like 7 p.m. and it would crush. And then all of a sudden it started to like taper off, and we were like, what is happening here? And people realized, like, we realized that it was getting warmer and people weren't oh, are you hearing a bubbly noise in the background? That might be my furnace, because I'm in the basement. Sorry. What do I do about that? I can try and I'll turn it off. I'm sorry. Geez, I was like, what? Okay, might be the dryer. And I was like, what are we talking about here? While I bring up my app to turn my furnace off. Sorry. I spend a lot of time down here, so it doesn't even, I just don't hear it anymore. Okay, sorry. Other times to share. Infomercial effect is sharing late at night, because other brands and things like that will not be sharing at that time, so you have less competition, and then the hope is that you get so much engagement. Yeah, how is COVID impacting the burrito principle? I don't know. See, here's the thing too. Every brand is going to be different, because you're going to have different demographics and different people to go after. This is just a starting point to like go with, and then you can kind of over time figure out where your demographic sits, right, and where you're getting the most engagement. But you still have to look you're always guessing, testing, measuring, because you'll find that as the seasons change, people's patterns change, and so the post at 7 p.m. On a Sunday night doesn't work anymore, because now people are on a patio or they're out getting ice cream, right, because the weather's nicer. So always be measuring and adapting. There's no like one size fits all. There's no any post that you see like the best time to post on social is like blank. It's smoke and mirrors. Okay, so when to post? 4 times a day max on Twitter, unless it's an event or taking part in a Twitter talk. That being said, like once every couple of days is fine, right? You don't have to do that. And what you want to do is find over time, like what is the right cadence for you. Even when I first took the job at the DMZ, I was like, oh, this is a bigger brand, so we'll post like twice a day. And we actually found that the algorithm then penalized us, because we were getting less engagement, right? Like if you're putting out less content, or sorry, more content, and it's getting less engagement, the algorithm will actually downgrade you, right? And say like, cool, like with Twitter, when I have something that starts to click over, like I'll tweet a thing and people start to engage with it, and I'm like, great, this is going to go well. What I have found is if I tweet again, like a net new tweet, it actually kills how much my old tweet is served. So I leave it a lot of times to like marinate, right? And it actually does better. Now, this is on my personal account, but you can make the assumption that would happen to a brand account as well. LinkedIn, once every 2 or 3 days max. If you want to do like once every 2 weeks, that's great too. Facebook, no more than 2 times a day. And then Instagram, like once a day. And stories is a whole other thing where you're talking to your engaged audience. The last thing you want to do though is be the brand that has like everybody's opened their Instagram stories and just seen like dash, 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 dash. You don't want to be that guy, right? Everybody has that one friend that's like, let me tell you every single aspect of my day on Instagram stories, right? And you're like, I don't need to see all of this. Like, now I'm going to eat. Now I'm going to shower. Now I'm going to walk over it. And you're like, no, I don't need to see this. You definitely don't want to be the brand that is doing that, right? So real-time events you can cover through Twitter, maybe Instagram, Instagram stories specifically though. Constant content is important. A dormant account or account that is not monitored is better off not existing. And don't be the guy that shares every thought, because we all have that friend. What people want on social. Does it make sense to create mini content? Yes, I would do that. Sorry, I need to go up in these questions. Are there any specific social networking sites that work best for service business? It depends on what your service is. I know that's not a specific answer. Probably Twitter though. If you're like an agency or something, then Twitter. But if you're like a cleaning service, Instagram, maybe Pinterest. You got to kind of test. Doesn't make sense to create many contents in advance for a long period of time. Web optimization B2B service. Fucking Christ. Yeah, like, are you like building sites for people and stuff? I mean, the easiest way there is to just go directly to someone and then tell them their website is trash in a nice way. Give them 5 ways. This is how I used to do it with my agency. I'd find a company that I wanted to work with. I would find 5 things wrong with their social or their web presence. And then I would email them about those 5 things. And I'd give them the way to fix all 5. Like, I'd be like, here's how you fix all 5 of these things. And then they would inevitably email me back and be like, hey, could we chat? Because if I'm giving away 5 things for free, and it's easy things, it's like things like favicons. Sorry. Yeah, optimizing rather than developing. Oh, like the promotional aspect, like an SEO thing. Is that what we're talking about? Like, or UX flows? Yeah, I know you have to type and I just get UX flows. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say like LinkedIn might work. What did we deal with to start? I'd say LinkedIn and Twitter, but like, you got to own that space, right? You got to be like, look, here are the 5, even that's a Twitter thread that's like, here are the 5 UX mistakes that everybody makes on their website. You know, it's stuff like that. That's the content game. Like, you write a blog about that, then you tweet it and you put it on Facebook. Sorry. Okay. There was that question about making content in advance. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to go crazy, right? But you want to have a skeleton. So this is why I talk about writing blogs, because if you write a blog, you can share it every 6 months on your social channel, right? If you write 10 blogs, now if you get to share it twice, like 2 times a year, maybe 3 times, you could probably get away with 4, right? You don't want to share it so often. But now if you write 10 blogs, that's 40 posts out of 365 days that you already have covered, right? Then you schedule them out every quarter. Like, so you put 1 a week or whatever for 10 weeks, and then you like have a break. And then what you start to do is layer in other stuff, right? Like, okay, where's your imagery content? What about what about secondary content? Like, what are the journalists in your kind of on your beat, what are they writing about? How can you jump in and kind of share what's happening in the industry in general and become a thought leader, right? Then you realize, okay, we'll do one, and this is like content themes, right? Like, we'll do 1 news article a week, we'll do 1 piece of original content, we'll do an image, we'll do like a hot take on something that's like trending or whatever. And there you go. All of a sudden you're like, oh, that's 3 or 4 pieces. And so over time, you can just start to like schedule things out super in advance. So like, when I left the organic social team at Shopify, because I had set up all these international pages and we kept track of every single blog post that we ever kind of published, and all of the copy that, like, all the copy that went along with it, I scheduled 8 months worth of posts for 7 languages. Just to be able to like, I was like, okay, here, you guys get 7 months of like, you don't even have to look at these channels. Now, is that the best social strategy? No. But we had a lot of content marketing. We didn't have a lot of social specialists. Okay. So sorry, slides, right? I think I'm good. We stopped, right? Oh man, there are more. Okay. No. Okay. UX UI. Cool. Thanks. All right. What people want on social. This is what they want to see from your brand. And from what they want from their channels, right? Authenticity, value, knowledge, to identify with others, and to be noticed. Those are those things. If you can give those things to people, or a couple of them, if you can do a couple of them together, golden. So what makes people share? This was like an in real life thing that my wife used to work at IKEA, so she made us go to it, and they took this catalog photo. So I understand that it's not social, but it's the best piece of branded content I've ever seen that immediately forced me to share it, right? We went to this thing, we sat down, they take this picture, they do an email capture. They're like, we'll email you your image. We're like, wicked. We want to look like we're on the front of a catalog. So they did email capture. So now they own our emails. Wicked job. They send us this thing. What did I do with it? Yeah. Oh, that is me. That's me and my wife and her sister and their kid and my brother-in-law. But we have far more children now, and we're far older because of the children, not because like it's been a really long time, just because the children have aged us. Yeah, look into my eyes, you know. Okay. Okay. I'm just joking. Okay. What makes people share? Inspiration, humor, identity, nostalgia, value, and timing, right? They actually have to see it. But these are all the things. It's like if you grew up in like the 80s, right? And somebody shares a picture of like, remember this? And they have like a pencil through a cassette tape because that's how you had to like wind it in. You're like immediately like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh. And then you share it with your friends and they're all like, yeah, that's it, right? But it's where it gets difficult is doing that for your brand. But that's just the best example of, because obviously that example I shared everywhere, right? Everybody thought that we were on an IKEA catalog. I just dropped it on every social platform that I could possibly think of. And IKEA got a shit ton of impressions because of it, because they did it with like there was a line. We waited in a line to do that. Okay, where to get content. And this is secondary content, the whole top part until I say create it. But you can set up Google alerts. Like with restaurants that I've dealt with, I had like, I dealt with one pub that had a lot of craft beer. So what I would do is set up like Google alerts for craft beer in Ontario. And then I would share articles about different craft beer that was like kind of coming, right? And then it shows that you're the thought leader in that space, right? It showed the clientele of that, like it gave them, like, because there were a bunch of like craft beer nerds, right? And like I'm a craft beer nerd, so it's fine that I say that. But they would be like, wow, I get my news about craft beer from the bar that I go to. That's awesome, right? And then they were like, you know where I'm going to go drink more craft beer? The bar that gives me all the info about it. Things like Pinterest are really great. Like you can actually go and search and then find wicked articles from Pinterest. BuzzSumo, RSS feeds, competitors. I used to do this all the time. A competitor would share something, but they would write something like not interesting to go along with it. So I would just share, like take it from them and be like, cool. And then I'd write a better version of copy, schedule it for 3 days later and just crush them. And then social media channels, you can actually like set up lists on Twitter that you don't even have to follow people. You can just set up private lists and just mine them for content on a regular basis. And then finally you can create it, which is obviously a little bit more time consuming, but might pay off for you in the long run. Anatomy of social. Okay. So I'm going to run through like how to tweet and how to how to post stuff. And a lot of this is like links and imagery, but obviously because putting video in here is a little bit difficult, but I'll try and touch on it at the end. Remind me if I forget. What about websites or social? Okay. All right. Sorry. What about websites or social sites that link all of your social networks together so that when you create a post, yeah, not to do that. Post them each separately because it won't look good. I would say like post them individually to each of those sites. People can tell. I mean, you're going to write it for like Instagram and then people are going to see it on Twitter and be like, why are there all these hashtags at the end or something like that? Okay. Sorry. Second sip of beer. Here we go. The anatomy of tweet. So this is a tweet that I wrote for the DMZ when I was there. The DMZ is a tech incubator, just so you guys kind of get a sense of where I'm going with this, because I use a bunch of DMZ and Shopify examples, and they're just kind of to show you how to share things and how to write the copy that goes along with them. We had a blog, 3 Toronto startups bringing real estate to the digital age. So I wrote, real estate is an industry ripe for disruption. Here are 3 Toronto startups changing the game. What have I done here? So generally when you're writing a tweet, you want to have 3 strategic hashtags. You don't have to have hashtags though. It's actually, I'd say it's probably more authentic to not have hashtags on Twitter. But so subject, location, brand, personality. Those are the 3 things that you want to think about. And immediately you go, but Brent, you didn't hashtag Toronto. And exactly, that's why I use this tweet as an example, because it's a teaching tool, everyone. Okay. So what have I done with these hashtags? All you need to know about this tweet is real estate, startup, article. Do you want to read that? Cool. That's because this is a design piece, right? Your eyes go top left to bottom right. I've highlighted the 2 words that you need to know. Now, why didn't I hashtag Toronto here? 1, minding the feed when I was running like the DMZ's account, I always I was using Toronto quite often because it's a Toronto-based incubator. So I didn't want to have Toronto hashtagged in every single tweet that I ever sent out, right? Because I'm thinking about the feed. Also, if I hashtag Toronto here, it gets highlighted and then your eyes kind of blur together for it. It just sees 2 hashtags in a row instead of the actual word that I want you to focus on. It's a compelling tweet that draws the user in. That is a subjective viewpoint, but I'm the one talking. So I'm going to tell you that it is. And I wrote it. Hashtags are added in the copy, not at the end. If you put them on the end, super spammy, right? It immediately makes me think like, oh, you're just trying to like eke out more impressions. The average person isn't probably thinking impressions, but they're thinking the same thing. Twitter cards are enabled, allowing for the embed, burrito principle, link shortened for tracking and analytics. Here's like an example. So this is terrible open graph that I don't even know if Tech Vibes still exists, but see how the image is just broken there? Oof, yuck. And this tweet is so old that it still shows the URL at the end of it because that was before they were embedding tweets or embedding the URLs. What have I done here? So this is just me fishing for awareness though. What ties John Ruffalo, who was the CEO of Omers Ventures at the time? Omers Ventures is the largest venture capital fund in Canada. What ties all of John Ruffalo of Omers Ventures investments together? The passion of the founder and the founding team. Article from Tech Vibes. DMZ had nothing to do with it, but got 4 retweets and 8 likes. 2 of the retweets, John Ruffalo, Omers Ventures. Perfect. I provided value to John Ruffalo where he went, oh, yeah, I love this thing about me, right? And he wanted to be noticed. So I fed that to him. And instead of him writing his own tweet about himself, retweet, boom. Now all of a sudden the DMZ is in front of the CEO of the largest VC firm in all of Canada. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. And they're like, what the heck? What is this DMZ thing that's talking about all this stuff? My buddy John over here. Perfect. Omers Ventures retweets it. Perfect. Right? Maybe somebody from like the York side of this. Are you guys taking notes? What are you guys taking? Dave, you taking notes on this? You tell your social media person. Okay, so here's another like DMZ quote. Right, so Phil was our head of business development, and he wrote this terrible tweet. This is a terrible structured tweet. He dotted. He put a CC on. Like, what the? It's a tweet, Phil. What are you doing? But we workshop this, and this was me fixing it. So like, think about what I had to work with. Okay, but he tweeted out, he put the dot at the front because if you're going to start a tweet with a username and you want it to go to all of your followers, you actually have to put a character in front of it. You don't have to put it on the other one. See how there's no period in front of Swiper or Ryerson DMZ? But if you want people to, yeah, like he's okay. I talked to him the other night. Sorry, I'm responding to chats there, if just in case you guys aren't following along. So MasterCard Start Path was this entrepreneurship program run by MasterCard. They were accepting apps for their next class. So Phil tweets it out to promote that, right? CC's, which is terrible. The head of that program, it says, would love to chat about how the DMZ can support. Only got 1 like, but the 1 like was from the DMZ account, which tells that guy, oh, this person is legit despite them writing a terrible tweet. Then this guy follows up. Yeah, because he's a BD guy. He's trying to write an email. We'll be in Toronto for our global pitch day in May. Let's connect. Boom. They reached out and we actually hosted this at the DMZ and they gave us the monies, right? And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying like Twitter can kind of get it done for you, right? Here's some like other stuff where we shared content marketing from social. This is that like question type of content that makes you go like, oh, is my packaging this? And like, it's like, click the link. Basically what I'm saying is you want to get close to clickbait, but not, you don't want to say like, you'll never guess what happened next. Here's like a stat drop. I was trying to get Harvard Business Review to retweet us. They did not. How would I have written what tweet? That other one? I wouldn't have CC'd them. That's a controversial thing to say. But I have been compared to Chris D'Elia in the past, except now it's more of an insult. Like it's oof. Okay, I'm gonna carry on. You guys feel free to just like make the chat go up so that I'm not getting compared to Chris D'Elia, please. Okay. Happily married. Just throwing that out there. Okay. Here's what you do not do on Twitter. Don't retweet braggadocious mentions, reply and engage, right? Think about it like a conversation with another person. You don't want to be terrible. Like you don't, the equivalent of like retweeting something saying like awesome about your business to the rest of your followers is you saying like, Brent, this is the greatest presentation I've ever seen. And I'm like, dear, come here. Did you hear what they just said? Like that's not what you want people to experience, right? You want to reply to somebody. Like you can quote tweet it and be like humbled to have like such lovely customers or whatever that is. But you don't want to be like, we're the best in the world. Yeah. Like nobody's on that brand's team. Okay. Don't share like any of the my best retweets of the week or your Twitter info or your data. Sometimes when you sign up for like different, analytics tools, they like auto share this stuff. Nobody cares about that. Don't spam a million hashtags. Don't tweet your Instagram or Facebook post. Don't tag users in copy that you hope will retweet. This goes for Instagram too. If you tag a brand consistently in hopes that they are going to like engage with you or give you a sponsorship or whatever, I got news for you. The person that runs that account knows who you are and they hate you. They hate you. Okay. I've been on the other end of this where somebody just tags Shopify in every single tweet or Instagram post. I hate you. I hate you. Like you're the worst. And then like social managers have like nemesis lists because I have one on Twitter that I keep where it's like people that messed with me or messed with a brand. I have a list and I check it and I see what you're doing and then I come for you. So like, because like I'm not going at you from a Shopify account, but I know who you are. Okay, don't ask for retweets. Very few can do this well. Don't share photos that are portrait. A lot you see politicians do this all the time because Twitter will crop your photo and you just get crotches. It's like a politician being like, I met the queen and like, look at our crotches because they take a portrait photo and they share it to Twitter and it cuts it all off. Don't ask for people to like and follow. Don't use the same words in a tweet if you can help it because the English language is vast and you could use different words. Don't tweet the same thing over and over again and don't start a tweet with a username if you want people to see it. Okay, here is a checklist of all the things that I just kind of went through of like, these are the things that should be in your tweet. Although hashtags are optional. Okay, the anatomy of a gram. Behold, my Storm and Leaf deodorant brand returns. Look at how well, like we paid a lot of money to get these photos taken. Okay, it's dope, guys. But you can't buy this deodorant because like we gave it up. Okay. So here is, and some of you are gonna disagree with this viewpoint on how to share on Twitter or sorry on Instagram, and that's fine. You're allowed to share whatever you want in the whatever way you want on Instagram. Everybody, there's always somebody that's just like, no, like this is the way you should do it. Cool, you do you. It's totally fine. Okay. what have I done with this this Instagram account? This Instagram post. You saw all those hashtags, but I actually had them in a comment, right? The reason I have them in a comment is that in feed, this photo, that post looks like this. I don't know how to go. Hold on. Can I? Yeah, I can go back here. Sorry, I should have like pointed that out before I flipped. Right. So I have the like my douchey hipster copy. That's it's the smell of places yet to be discovered. Frontier. Right? I wrote that, guys, and you're listening to me, and you already have for like an hour and a half. So, ooh, life choices. Okay, then I have a bunch of hashtags. Then I have a comment underneath with like the little plant thing, right? So the reason I do that is because I hate the hashtags in the actual post. I find that in the comments it does just as well, and it hides it in a feed. So it looks like this in feed if you actually follow on with an emoji, right? It doesn't look like I'm like chasing the hashtags versus when you put it in your actual copy, then it shows up sometimes. So high quality photos, you want a 4:5 ratio for maximum screen size, but you can do 1:1s. Hashtags are hidden. A few can be used in your copy to actually like draw somebody's eye in. Now, here's how to do your hashtag research for Instagram. Okay. You want high, medium, and low volume hashtags. What I mean by that is high volume is like when you go and click on a hashtag and you look at recent, how many posts are being shared, right? Is it one every minute? That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying volume, right? So one every couple minutes, that's a high volume hashtag. It's like a big one, like it's like hashtag vegan, right? Then you want to find medium volume hashtags around like, so that's one every couple hours to couple days. And then low volume where it's like one every couple days. The ideal here is that you want to mix those things together in order to eventually have a post reach the top posts for any of those hashtags. Now, when you go out and you find 30 of each of these, 30 high volume, 30 medium volume, 30 low volume, then you take 10 high, 10 medium, and 10 low and put them all together because you can only share 30 hashtags at a time, right? On a post. So take all 30, like 10 high, 10 medium, 10 low, you put them all together, you throw them on a post. Now you have 3 groups though. So you end up with actually coverage for 90 hashtags. And that would allow you to, what the hope is that as it kind of moves, it's okay to tag on Twitter. Oh, sorry. I'm going to come back to that. Give me one sec. I just realized comments and I'm like in the middle of a point. Just so lack of it. Just I'm all over the show. Okay. So you use these 3 groups of 30 on a regular basis, right? The hope is that you will eventually get to rank for one of the high volume hashtags so that you can get your brand in front of as many people as possible. But the other thing that this does though is it allows you to, okay, you didn't rank for any of the top ones, you move on to the medium ones, maybe like you get enough likes from that, like enough people are following those hashtags that they're like they see your thing and they're like cool, or you move on to the low ones and you hope to be able to at least rank for one of those, right? It's kind of like hedging your bets, instead of just saying like I want to rank top for vegan or putting vegan as the only thing that you ever put on your hashtags, right? You want to have a mix of them so that you can kind of move around through different niches within Instagram, and then have a consistent brand aesthetic, mind the feed. Here's some, like, I hate this inspiration stuff, but it does really well. Where it's just like, go the extra mile. And you're like, what? Who liked this? Who liked this? But people do. Here's like behind the scenes, and we wrote like long form content where we were trying to do like employment branding. Education, we would take content marketing, we'd turn it into slides, and then we would share them on our Insta so that like people could learn things. Do not use hashtags in your copy. Like, don't use a ton of them. Don't use low resolution imagery. Don't stray from a consistent brand aesthetic. Your feed is important. Don't tag every brand or account or influencer you can think of, and don't spam out your feed. I don't want to see 4,000 posts if I followed you as a brand. There's a checklist. Sorry, I'm going to come back to these questions. Yes, I'm kind of funny sometimes. It's okay to tag on Twitter once in a while. Yeah, I would say like tag people, but make sure that it's a relevant reason to tag someone, right? Don't tag them in the hopes that they're going to share it or retweet it unless they have an actual reason to do so. Like my John Ruffalo tweet, right? There's a reason that he would retweet that. If you're just randomly tagging brands and hoping that they're going to retweet your sale or whatever it is, like that's never going to happen, right? You have to provide value. It's okay to make a hashtag with your own brand name, but who's searching that? Right? Like people like to think about hashtags all the time. The only reason you should create a hashtag is if other people are actually going to use it. And what's really interesting is like you see these things all the time, right? Where it's like some brand has gone out. I would test it. Short and long form text on Insta post. Test, see what both can work. Sorry, hashtag stuff. See, bad attention span. I see it move, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look at it again. So hashtags. You see a bunch of brands use this all the time, where they're like, we're gonna put our name into a hashtag. Why? What does that do? Unless people are compelled to share, and like the next time you see a hashtag on like a billboard or a bus or whatever, search it, see what's there. It's not good. Like I've run multi-million-dollar campaigns where people were like, we need a hashtag, and you're like, no you don't. You just need your message to be like authentic and valuable, right? You can put your brand hashtag on there, but you're just wasting space. No one is ever going to use your hashtag or search it, and if they did, it's just your account, right? I know that I sound like I'm angry. I'm not angry at you, whoever it was that asked the question, but like no one's gonna search it, no one's gonna use it. It's like your own ego more than anything else, and it's not your ego specifically, person that asked the question. Like but it's been trying to encourage clients to tag brand names for reviews. uh yeah, I wouldn't do that. Okay, that's your own hashtag thing. Okay, anatomy of a post. Here's just like how to post on like Facebook and LinkedIn. Okay, one, shout out to like the content marketing team at Shopify, because they write dope headlines on articles like this, so it makes it really, really easy, right? Because this, like, look at how well this is. It's like how to make money on YouTube, and you immediately go like, but I don't have a million. Oh, without a million subscribers, that's me. Oh, like in a headline, they have actually taken your biggest complaint about what this could be and already killed it before you've even clicked. It's just chef's kiss. Okay. So what I did find from this though is that we translated this into Italian and then I put it out, and apparently in Italy this is not a good sign to make. And the fact that a grandmother is making it was even worse, and I got lit up on Italian social media. Just as a heads up, in case you're thinking about like, yeah, I'm going to use this post too. Okay. So right here, like subscribers and view counts aren't the only way. How to make money on YouTube without a million subscribers. When you're writing your copy, you want to be able to, people will read, they'll look at the image first, they'll read the headline second, and then they'll read this thing. But if you write it in that way, then it looks weird. You have to have it so they kind of complement each other and can be read both ways. That's what I would say for your like social copy. Here's another one. We asked 10 entrepreneurs in the DMZ to finish the sentence. This is like bordering on clickbait. The one thing nobody told me about being an entrepreneur, in gifts. And then it has a picture of Michelle from Full House. And you immediately go, what the hell from Michelle from Full, what the hell does Michelle from Full House have to do with being an entrepreneur? And that is exactly what I want you to think, because then the only way to actually answer that question is to click the link and then drink the Kool-Aid and then give us the monies, or eventually give us some of your mind share so that you give us the monies. And the DMZ never took money from anybody, so that's not actually the thing. But you get what I mean. So here's what you do. Post copy that does not duplicate the title of the article. You don't want your copy to be like a full paragraph. The full width article image of 1200 by 628 pixels. That's open graph, right? Compelling article title, full lead, open graph enabled, tagging of relevant brands, no hashtags unless it's for brand personality or an event. I would say, like, especially on Facebook, don't don't use hashtags. It confuses the olds sometimes. And there are actually like studies that have shown that hashtags on Facebook get 2x less engagement. Okay, here's like a stat drop that we just like pulled out of a content marketing piece and we tossed it on there. And you can do this out of articles too that you didn't write. You just have to source them, right? Like just say like via this person. And the hope is that then that person, if especially if it's a journalist, ends up retweeting it, right? Because you provide value to them. And if they're a journalist that covers like your beat, say you're in fashion, go find all the fashion journalists that work for like the Globe and Mail and the National Post and go and follow them. Okay. Tags were copy should add context but not be overly promotional. Hashtags are okay to support an event but rarely used. Here are some other examples, right? I pulled this straight out of this content marketing piece, number of leads, and it's crazy. And this is kind of like a knowledge drop / I want to overwhelm you so that you're just like, what? Number of leads multiplied by purchase frequency multiplied by average order value. These are the 3 multipliers that facilitate content marketing growth. Everything else is noise. Picture of money. You're clicking that for sure. Okay. Every brand has a story to tell. Here's how to tell yours. That's a pretty easy one. Do things, tell people, like if you can hammer any of these sloganish type of things. Can you please speak to when to use a Facebook group or a page? If you're a brand, use a page. If you're creating a community, use a group. And you can do both, but that's more work. Maybe think about Slack. I feel like Slack community, it's harder to get people to opt into. Depends on what you're doing. Okay. I hope that's okay. All right. Do not post with @usernames. Don't hashtag a crazy person. Don't share a link and post the title as your copy as well. Don't leave links in your copy. If you noticed in any of those examples that I had, there was no link that was left in the copy. I pull it out so that it's clean. Don't tag users in copy that you hope will share. Don't share photos that are portrait. You can do 4x5, but so it's not a straight up crotch shot like on Twitter, but like you cut heads and feet off. Ask people to like follow you on other social media channels. Don't share links that do not contain properly formatted title, image, and description. Don't share the same post over and over and over again. Don't ask for likes. Okay, here's the whole checklist of those things. Okay, let's talk about Facebook ads. I could talk about this for way longer than I have already talked because it is what I do every single day. Now in 2 slides, I'm going to try and cover at least the basis of what you should know before you start running ads. Now, one, Facebook is probably the place you want to start, like Facebook / Instagram, right? It's just like the most mature platform. You do tend to get a decent return, but it is gambling. Like when you're doing paid, especially if you haven't done paid before, even for my deodorant company, I did it and I lit $1,000 on fire. And I do this as a job for $167 billion company. And I still lit $1,000 of my own money on fire trying to do it for a deodorant brand because I didn't do the work, right? I was just like, this will be easy. And it wasn't. So one, need a pixel on your site because whatever you optimize towards, so you can optimize towards traffic, you can optimize towards engagement, you can optimize towards conversions, right? Like I'm going to use an e-commerce funnel, and I know that that's not going to apply to all of you, but I'm sure that you can kind of at least follow it. Like, so when I say e-commerce funnel, I just mean like when you buy a thing online, right? You land on the site, so that's traffic. You then like add to cart, that's kind of like showing your intent, and then you purchase. So ideally, right, if you just started yesterday, you need to have a pixel on your site, and right now it knows nothing. It doesn't know anything about any of your web traffic or anything. So you need to get traffic onto your site so that it understands the type of people that would be on your site, Then slowly over time, what I would do is like spend down your funnel. So now you say, okay, now I want to spend towards an add to cart. And then after that, you want to spend towards a purchase event. The other thing to be aware of though is that you need 50 conversions in a week. So if your average cost per conversion or per purchase is $10 on Facebook, you need to spend $500 a week in order to get to 50 conversions. And then Facebook's algorithm will exit the learning phase and you'll see a cheaper cost. But if you never exit the learning phase, it will just consistently burn your money. So keep that in mind, right? Like you want to look at, so if this is why I'm talking about running like the Instagram ads that you're running, right? From an Instagram account, that's what objective did you put in there? You're just going to reach more people, but it's just going to fire it off at anyone. You're not using any of like Facebook's algorithmic tech, right? And that's what you want. Like that's the best part of Facebook. It's the best and the worst part of Facebook at the same time, right? That's how you get the ads that where you're like, I was just thinking about this. They know because they have millions of other people that are doing the exact same thing. And they're just like, cool, like these are the sites. Like every site you go on has a Facebook pixel on it. I mean, iOS 14.5 is going to come out. So if you have an iPhone, that's going to kind of change things. But the way that the internet works right now is there's a Facebook pixel on every single website that you are ever on. So if you're logged into Facebook or in Instagram on your phone, all that data gets sent to Facebook. They pair it with you and they know every site you've been on, right? They know but that's Google, that's all of them, right? They all have this. But if you're going to utilize that, you need to set it up correctly. So pixel first, make sure you have traffic to your site, make sure you have enough add to carts and then enough purchase conversions before you start running towards a purchase event, right? Use your organic as a springboard and testing ground to like go and test some of your ads organically. If you have a decent following, even ask your followers like, hey, which ad do you think is better for us? And like, see what they say. Audience targeting progression. You want to start with like interest based because you probably won't have, unless you have at least, I think it's 500 or 1,000 emails. You can build lookalikes. Lookalikes are dope. If you have an email list of 1,000 people that have like purchased your product or have shown interest, then you could build a lookalike audience from that. Or if you have more than 1,000 people that have been on your site through your pixel, you can create a lookalike audience out of that and target them, right? That's what, if you can, start with lookalike audiences, but if you can't, then start with interest and try and get some site traffic and hopefully people like check out or buy or whatever. But keep in mind too, that you don't have to start with social. If your brand is a discovery-based brand, then social is the way to go. But if your brand is an intent-based brand, meaning there's intent behind someone's actions, right? Like you can capture the search for that. Search is a far more efficient channel to spend your money on, right? Dependent on what you are. If you're a random like who's a what's it that nobody's ever heard of, that you're like, we reinvented the hoodie, like then social is where you are, right? If you're a mechanic, search is probably where you're at, right? Because people have an intent behind what they're searching. Now you got to do a bit of research because you might be like, well, I'm in the like apparel or whatever, but then that means that like you're up against Amazon. Right? If you're going to go and bid on like hoodie, well, Walmart and Amazon and all of them are there and they employ legions of people like me that make sure that you won't show up anywhere, right? So maybe social is your spot. But keep that in mind. If you can own some search terms and there's enough search volume, I'd spend on search before I'd spend on social. Okay. And here's why. You could burn money, everybody. Look at it, it's a money fire. So start small and scale when you know what works, right? Test multiple versions of the same ad with different copy, different imagery, different titles. Turn off the Facebook ad network. I only say this because it's never worked for me. You can pick from a bunch of placements and Facebook will tell you like, select all because we're going to find the right thing. No. Audience network is not good, or at least it's never been good for me. Start with top of funnel objectives, like I was saying, like landing page views or product page views, and move down the funnel slowly. Retargeting and lookalikes are solid first bets, right? Keep in mind that if you're driving to your site, then you can retarget people through your pixel. All right. So in summary, ask yourself, would I retweet, like, or share, or engage with this if I happen to see it from another person on social media? Ask yourself that every single time you go to share something, right? Be like, would I engage with this if I wasn't me? And like, don't be delusional. Don't be like, obviously, because it's the greatest thing ever. But it has to at least spark something in you where you're like, this is cool. Try not to use the same content theme twice in a row. Don't say, come to this event, come to this event, come to this event, because it messes up your feed. And also, like, people don't want to hear that. Always provide value, or at least always attempt to. Never spam out on your feeds. Yeah, I can do that in a sec. Strike a maintainable balance between your primary and secondary content. When I say maintainable, I mean maintainable for you and for your schedule. Don't set yourself up with like, I'm going to write 10 blog posts a week. And then you write 10, and then you're like, oh, and I shared one every single day. And then you're like, oh, I'm burnt out. Like, go slow. If you write 10 blog posts, schedule them, each of them out for the next one a month for the next 10 months. Now you got 1 day checked off. Cool. What are you going to do for the other like 3 posts that you need to do, right? And kind of scale that way. And fill it in with secondary content, but you don't need to share it right away either. I feel like I've said far more than I normally do. I apologize. See, I almost just did it again while I was talking about saying Okay. Jab, 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 right hook is give, 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 ask, right? That's what you should be doing with your social content. Always engage with people. Avoid using short forms like you're texting like you're 12 years old, right? There are people that will engage with that, but if you're making the argument that more people will engage with your thing and like your customers are going to end up liking you more because you write like this, challenge, man. I don't believe that at all, because more people are going to be upset that you've used that incorrectly than they will be if you just wrote it normally. Nobody that writes with like the letter U is going to be upset if they read YOU, but people that use YOU will be pissed that you use the letter U, right? It's like it's like telling an American, if you're asked, well, I guess I should do the Canadian version of this. If you meet a person from Australia or New Zealand and you aren't sure which one they are, assume that they're from Australia or New Zealand, because Australians will be like, what? I've never heard that before, but New Zealanders will be pissed if you call them Australian. It's the same with Canadians and Americans, right? If you said to an American, like, are you from Canada? They'd be like, no. But if you said to a Canadian, are you from America? They are offended, right? So that's what this is like YOU versus you is the exact same thing. Like, don't piss off people you don't need to. Tweet and post like a human, not like a marketing machine. And this is like a hard thing to do, right? Because you sit down at your keyboard and you're like, I'm the brand now. I got to talk like the brand, right? Oh, is this what your question is? Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. This is what I do. You want to take the parts of your personality that match up with the brand and kind of let them go, which will be a little off of brand from what if you're a solopreneur or you're starting your own thing, your brand is going to be pretty close with your own personality. And then what you want to do with like the terrible parts of your personality is just push them down and drink them away, right? Just push them down and drink them away, and it'll be fine. Just never let those feelings or thoughts ever come out from any of your social accounts, and you'll be fine. No, okay, seriously though, like just be as authentic as you can be. Right? Say it to a friend before you write it, right? Explain to a friend what you're doing. Say it out loud, because you'll find that if it doesn't sound like it's coming from you, then there's a problem, right? There'll be agencies that will always kind of say like, we train so that everybody sounds the same. No, that's a lie, right? I've worked on big teams where multiple people are writing copy and you can tell who wrote every single post. Now, maybe on the outside, people can't, but if you're on that team, you can tell who wrote every single post and you should be able to. We're all individual people. So, like, your tone doesn't have to be so on point because no one outside of the team that worked on that team, like the crew of us that were writing copy, no one else knew who wrote what. Like, no one was like, oh, somebody else wrote this one. It's a different one. Like, that's, uh-oh, say nice things. Julia just coming in hard with like, hey, there are 5 minutes left. Fill out the survey. Okay. So, and then keep in mind, like, you are your target demographic. So you've probably built a thing that the point of that is you've probably built a thing where you're trying to solve a problem. And even if you're not the target demographic of your business or the way that the problem you're trying to solve, you probably understand it and are empathetic enough that really you are the person that you're trying to speak to. So convince yourself, right? But convince yourself in an authentic way. Don't feed yourself some bullshit, right? Because you would be able to smell it. Okay, tools. Here's a bunch of things. Hootsuite, Buffer, or TweetDeck. You can kind of use these things to build these, to schedule. TweetDeck really isn't supported anymore. Same with Sprout. I think Sprout's the most expensive out of all of them. But I think Hootsuite is like $10 a month. There's Later as well, but I don't know if Later does all of the things. I know it does Instagram. Twitter Analytics, Facebook Insights, Google Analytics. Those are all free. Make sure you at least look at them. Other tools are like Social Blade will give you like a rough estimate of a social account, Tweetbinder for hashtag analytics, Pushbullet. When I was on organic, because like the notifications on your phone are far better than they are on your computer, I would have every single notification from my phone pop up on my computer. But I also use Android, so if you're on iOS, you're probably fine and you have a Mac. Mobile apps for Twitter and Facebook. Use Bitly or UTM.io to build out UTMs. If you don't know what UTMs are, go look it up. It's the easiest way to like track links and where they came from. Canva is probably the best tool for like quick image creation and even motion video. And then private Twitter lists. So I didn't talk about this, but I normally do. I'll do questions in 1 sec though, if you guys can, because I'm happy to go over 8. If you guys have to bail, I'm so sorry that I took this long, but thank you for 2 hours of listening to me rant at you. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Private Twitter lists. Easiest way to like build relationships and like go out, like take your ideal list of people that you, so here, this is the best. I'll just tell this story. It's the easiest way to kind of get this across. I was working with a land development startup, very boring. And they wanted Tridel, who like builds all the condos in Toronto, like not all of them, but you get it. They're a big enough player. So they build all the condos in Toronto. So what we did is we went on LinkedIn, we found all the people that worked for Tridel, then we cross-referenced those names onto Twitter. Then we took all those names on Twitter and we put them on a private list. So we didn't follow them. They didn't know that we were engaging with them at all, right? Then we would just go in and look at that list every day of like, okay, what did they tweet? And we'd look for opportunities to engage with them. So we would, and most of these people were like mid-management people that had 40 followers and they were terrible at Twitter and they just wanted to be noticed, right? So we started liking their tweets. I read so many articles about land development that I did not understand, but I pulled pieces out of them to engage with these people in conversations as this brand, right? Over time, because we had built out our like social to look good and we had other content going out, and then we started retweeting them or quote tweeting them and being like, look at how great like this thing is, this is amazing, and then they would get more impressions because of it and they'd be like, ooh, and we fed their ego. But because of that, then we created a relationship with all these middle managers, and it only took, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and we didn't go hard because you don't want to come over the top on anybody. 3 weeks later, they called us. And then they pulled them in and they signed them as their first client. And that was just because of like relationship management through Twitter. That's why Twitter is my jam, right? You can do that stuff with journalists, with everybody else. So like create private Twitter lists of your competitors of and see what they're sharing. Like it gives you the best insight into everything, right? If you're going to go and meet with somebody around like investment or stuff, like look up their social accounts and learn what you can about them. How do they talk about themselves? What do they share on a regular basis? What kind of, it's stalkery, but it's social. You're always stalking somebody on social. So, I mean, at least use it for a good purpose to kind of understand who it is you're talking to and what you're going after, right? It gives you a competitive advantage because most of the other people that are out there aren't doing that. Sorry. Okay. That's with the private Twitter list. I didn't really cover that. And I normally do earlier. Measurement, guess, test, measure, adapt, rinse, repeat. So the way to measure your social is dependent on what you're doing, right? But you want to look at your engagement and your engagement rate and your impressions and your link clicks and which content themes are over and underperforming. Do not chase followers. Followers doesn't mean anything, right? Your content should be good, and don't go out and buy followers. Don't run campaigns for followers. It's the worst idea ever because it will mess up your social person in the future, because then you'll be like, we have 2,000 followers, why are we only hitting 30 people? And they'll have to be like, well, because you bought followers for $5. What you really want to look at is like the share ratio. Impression to share ratio is really good because that'll tell you like how many net new people are you hitting. A lot of the things that I'll look at too is like, how many followers do I have and how many impressions am I receiving per post? Ideally, you want to get more impressions per post or a higher reach, depending on which platform you're looking at, than followers that you have, because that's telling you that the algorithms are engaging with it, people are engaging with it enough that it actually gets pushed into new people's feeds, right? You want to look at things like that. You don't want to look at vanity metrics, like how many likes did this thing get, right? What does that do? How many clicks? For sure. How many impressions versus your followers? How many impressions to shares? Yes. But don't use vanity metrics that actually won't push your business forward, right? If you can't justify a way in which, like, impressions, yeah, more people see you. Followers, no, that doesn't guarantee that more people follow you, right? It's not going to push your business forward. You getting more eyeballs on your content, for sure. What's your average impressions per post? What's the average engagement per post, right? Those things will help, but don't over index towards any of them, because ideally at the end of the day, you want to drive a session to your site where somebody buys from you. So anything else is kind of just noise, right? Impressions are like, oh, this got 4 retweets. Cool. How many people clicked? How many people clicked your profile URL? How many people actually ended up on your site and showed intent towards doing something with your business, right? Keep those things in mind versus like the vanity metrics of like, I got 9,000 likes. Cool. What did it do for your business though? Because you can share spicy memes all day and get tons of engagement, but it won't drive your business forward. See, I said again at the end for no reason. Okay, here are some books. Gary Vee, I'm not a fan of in general, but this book is very well written. Jab, 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 right hook. Unmarketing by Scott Stratton is pretty great, although it's probably pretty dated. But the philosophy, those 2 books, well, these 3 books essentially formed my philosophy that informed this deck, and still the philosophy that I carry today. And Hooked by Nir Eyal is actually about habit forming products, but it applies to social and marketing really, really well. And then here's some stuff that you can read from. I will say that the Shopify blog is really good, and I know that sounds like I'm like feeding you the Kool-Aid, but like the team that works on that stuff is actually really great at like researching. So if there is something that you want to learn, there's probably a blog about it on the Shopify blog that is well written. That's not me saying go sign up for Shopify or anything. If you want to do that though, like that's cool too. But we do have like a bunch of content that's just free. Okay, that's it. Okay, I can roll through your questions in the chat.
Yep, we have
So,
time for questions.
cool. Think of, what do you think of the Instagram or any social media algorithm? I mean, yeah, they have to build algorithms to figure out like whose content gets shared. Otherwise, the trashy content that you don't see would be in your feed and then you wouldn't stay on the platform. And that's ideally, so I mean, maybe that's what your question is like, are they good? I don't know. You definitely don't want to see everything that you follow. I think that if you did, you would be not happy about it. Okay, when posting on IG, what are your thoughts on posting about your own Okay, hold on. When posting on IG, what are your thoughts on posting about your own products and talking about them in the copy? Is that negative if done too much? I mean, if you're sharing insights towards your product around like how it was built or what it does, or even if you're sharing testimonials of other people, those do really well. What you want to keep in mind though is that you're going to touch every stage of the funnel. So you don't want to go too, okay, I buy from you. Right? I buy this product. Okay. Now I'm going to follow you on Instagram. Then you're going to hit me with what? Only sales things or only product based stuff for me to buy again? That's annoying, right? You need to think about every single person. And that's why I like start with that funnel piece where it's like, cool, you're hitting every single person in the funnel though. So you have to keep in mind that you're trying to attract people in while you're trying to build like evangelists or influencers for your brand and kind of push people right over the edge. Maybe somebody follows on Instagram and they're like, I'm not sure if I want this thing or not. And that's why they follow you. But you need to keep all three of those things in mind, or like, I guess all three of those stages in mind every time you share content. So you want to be able to speak to all of those groups, and you can point things, but I just wouldn't share your product as the only thing, right, all the time, because then people that have purchased from you will be like, yeah, I know, I own it, right? Unless it's like a repeatable thing. But even then, you want to share, you want to mix up your content themes. Okay, where are we at? As a marketing agency, what's the best way to reach new customers? Old customers. But if you don't have that, you reach out to the people that you want to work with and tell them, like the example that I gave earlier, and I don't know if you were around or not, but I used to reach out to people and send them an email of 5 things that were wrong with their website and web presence and the 5 ways to fix those things. That's the, give somebody something and you'll get time with them. And it's annoying for sure, but it'll get you customers. And that way you get to pick them. Like it's on you if it doesn't work out, if they call you in for a chat, because you picked them. And then charge people. And I didn't do that well. I always like wanted the business more than I thought about the money, and you get overworked and burnt out. I'm in the process of starting a courier business. Just wondering what you think the best platforms to work with would be. I mean, you probably want to start with like the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook piece and have a little bit of LinkedIn on there. I mean, that's not a ton. I know that sounds like a lot, but it isn't if you just create content and then share it across all of those channels. But I would kind of start there. I mean, LinkedIn less so. It depends on like what kind of, if you're like a bike courier that's local, or if you're like building up like a fleet of courier people. I know that you're probably going to type in the response below, but then I'm going to like jump to a bunch of other questions. I'll try and double back on that. Run a community Insta page helping young adults with their journey of personal growth through user-generated content that we develop, edit, and share. Dope. How could we boost user-generated content on Instagram? How to get more people to sign up? Damn, that's a hard one. UGC, as it's called in the biz. All right. UGC is is difficult to do because you have to incentivize people to do it. And this one is even more difficult because I would assume that there aren't a ton of people out there that are just like, yeah, I'd love to share my personal growth story for your Instagram account.
So Brent, I actually unmuted Sanat so he can actually.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm, I'm hanging out.
That was a beautiful talk, guy. You should be proud right now. You should be chilling.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah. No, you talk for a sec. It's gonna be great. I'm excited.
So basically, I run a community platform called Frienducate, Educate a Friend, and we basically help young adults focus on their personal growth. And how do we do that? Is by getting UCG, user-generated user-generated content, and we develop, edit, and share that content with the followers that we have. We're slowly building up. We started almost a year ago, but we had a small drawback that made us change our business model, so on and so forth. Right now, we're not generating any revenue, and so we cannot really incentivize the people coming on.
Well, no, I'm not. Yeah, sorry. When I said like incentivize, I don't mean like you got to give people a reason, right? I'm not saying you need to give them money.
Right. So right now the reason is like we'll promote your account. So like it's not necessarily just personal growth content. It could be any content that falls under different topics. So like about graphic design, you want to share your knowledge about something, welcome to our page, It's very broad.
I know.
Yeah.
Unless you can show that like that they're gonna get something out of it, right? And that's the easiest way is to build like case studies of you don't have to like write a full case study or anything. What I'm saying is like you get together some stats of like this is what people that have done this have received as a benefit, right? And then you go out and pitch people with that. Like they got like and if it's small numbers, like they got 50 new followers or something, then you use percentages. They saw a 4% increase in their followers, or they saw whatever, and use the percentages, like pick the better numbers, right? But I would say like what can you what can you offer them? And how can you build like a web portal around that, right? Like how do you, when you solicit it now, right? Every time you post one, be like, hey, do you have your story to share? Like put it wherever. Because you want to hit people in the moment where they're like, oh, I could do this. Because that's probably the best time. And then I'd say like reaching out to any kind of group that may already be tapped into that community, right? Like look for the partnership of like, hey, this is how we like do this thing. You guys have a lot of these people. Can we like partner up? Because that's probably the easy.
Is a good example,
yeah. Hey, why not? talk to Dave. But like, yeah, it's stuff like that, right? Go out, because it's easier to go out and like I this is not related, but a decent analogy, I guess, is like when I started doing social, I was doing restaurants. And then I realized that there are like restaurant management groups. And that is a way better way to go out and get a bunch of restaurants without actually having to talk to individual restaurants. And instead, I just went and pitched a restaurant management company. And then every restaurant that they got, they just brought me into, right? So like, that's what you want to kind of go up the funnel. Like, I know that this is a different funnel analogy, but you want to go upstream, I guess, right? Figure out who has all the people that you want, and then go and chat with them and be like, hey, this is what we're doing. And then get them to give you the people so that you don't have to do that work. Right.
100%. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay. How do you build impressions with 0 follower on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram? Like a brand new account or a new company? Yeah, love this. Start posting stuff. Okay, that's a bad answer. Well, one, start posting stuff, right? You got to start posting stuff. Don't go crazy, but then go out and like follow like 50 people and start using, like, on Insta, you use hashtags. On Facebook, on Insta, use hashtags. On Facebook and Twitter, you don't really have to. The other side to it, though, is that go use your accounts and engage with other accounts, right? Even on Facebook, you can do it. You can use Facebook as your Facebook page and then go and comment on like-minded or community page posts, right? You can't comment on somebody's personal posts, but you can go and actually follow other brands and then engage with them, right? And the hope is that then other people see your comments and they're like, oh, what's this, right? And they jump to you. That's the easiest way to build it without spending money and doing it in the most authentic way, because you shouldn't spend money to get followers, right? But you have to start posting stuff and start to engage. And if you can, go hyper local, because hyper local is far easier to grow off the hop than trying to, like, we're going to be an international brand. And even if you're planning to be an international brand, like, own Toronto first, or own wherever you are first, because it's easier to go super hyper local and say, like, we're this and we stand for this place, right? In places like Toronto, it's a little bit harder. But if you're in a smaller region, it's really easy. I shouldn't say really easy. I mean, like, it's kind of easy. It's still hard. I hope that helps. Oh, and create content that's shareable. If you create content that's shareable, then eventually you'll get followers and they'll share it. And then you'll get more followers. What would you say is the easiest, safest method to reach out to people to become your clients if you're running a new investment management service? Oh my God. I don't know. Considering it's a very sensitive topic and not many people are comfortable talking about their monies. Also, how can you avoid being sketchy with it? Oh, go work for Wealthsimple? Like, here's the thing. Because I had to do this. I did this for a financial advisor, and it was tough. Like, it's we used to share stuff all the time, and he got some leads out of it, and I think he did get some clients. You have to show that you know what you're talking about and not be like, and especially now, though, it's even harder because of, like, the gurus that are like, I said this stock was going to go up 60% and look, it did. Like, you don't want to be that guy. So it's more about, like, can you, that's a pure, like, thought leadership and content marketing piece, right? Is like, what do you offer that other people don't? And can you provide value? Like, okay, write stuff about, like, well, what should I do with my RSPs, or what should I do with my taxes, or any of the stuff that essentially the questions you answer all the time, you take those and turn them into content themes, right? Like, that's you probably have a standard kind of, like, these are the questions that you ask somebody and these are the answers that they give you, and then you have to give them back, like, some of that advice. That's the content themes that you build for, right? You say, like, okay, here, this is what to do with your RSPs. This is what to do with your TFSA. This is how to maximize this thing. This is the stocks that you should be in for the long term. How much money do I need to retire with? All those things, like, go out and do those. The hard part, though, is that you have to compete with, like, the Wealthsimples and the Investors Group and all those other things of the world, right? So the only way, the hardest way to do that, I mean, a lot of the financial people that I have worked with, though, is they use, like, referrals, internal referrals. Like, it's like, oh, I have this money guy, my friend needs this money guy, but that is not like it's a really hard business, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. It's a really hard thing to do. I hope that like, just provide value and hope that it gets returned to you. Amazon Courier, Fleet, Amazon. Yo, I work at Shopify. I can't help you. I don't know, dude. I don't know what an Amazon courier is. I stay away from the Empire. We're arming the rebels over here. Okay. So, do you need to understand every algorithm on social channels? No, because nobody does. They don't like publish things about them. It's just like, if you've been on a social channel, you understand how it works to a point, because it's like, when one of your friends from like high school or something gets married, or like, has a kid, or graduates or whatever, and all of a sudden their post pops up in your feed, and you're like, I forgot that I was even friends with this person. It's because like they got a lot of engagement. All it is it's engagement by impressions. Like, so you get 100 impressions, you get 50 engagements on it. Instagram goes, oh, this is a hot thing, so it serves it to more people, right? And that's essentially how they all work, is like, okay, I'm going to serve it to 100 people, let's see how it does. Now I'm going to serve it to these 100 people because they have engaged with this at this stage, right? Now more. That's how it works. So you don't need to understand them. What you want to understand is that, like, the more value you provide to a social platform's users through your content, the more it will be shared with them, right? So, and that's very much based off of like the very first 100 people that see it. Because if the first 100 people that see it don't like it, it doesn't reach that second 100 because they shut it down, right? If you post and you get no likes, and I mean, this is what's kind of breaking like teenagers these days, where they're like post and then they're like, I got 0 likes, I got to take it down. But that is essentially how that algorithm works. And the thing is like, you might try a content theme and it might not work off the hop, and then you could try it 6 months later and it'll crush, right? Like your demographics will shift over time. Amazon is a supplier, but looking to branch off to the public. I mean, cool, great, do that. Go do that. I mean, I'd say like, you gotta maybe do like UGC. You gotta talk about what the value is, and then how I can get in contact with you, because how does your courier service make things better for me? That's what I would kind of focus on. But that seems more like an ad thing, where you run it as like a lead generation tool, than it does a, like, here's the organic content. I mean, your organic content, you probably want to start like, just like, it's almost like Streets of TO or something like that. I mean, I don't know if you're in Toronto, but think about it as like, this is what we see on every day kind of thing, as like an interest piece. And then you also need to tell the story of why people should pick you over UPS. I'm on a mission to encourage more encouragement in the world. Okay, there's a lot of encouraging going on. Developed a mobile app called You Got This. Any thoughts of who my initial audience might be, given that everybody or anybody? Okay. The app to send encouragement videos to friends, loved ones, colleagues. Okay. But is it like is it like a social app where I can see all the messages that are out there, or it's just a platform to send encouraging messages? Because then my question, and this may be hard to hear, is why am I not just doing this in a text or a FaceTime or anything else, or an audio chat? That's a hard question. I know. Yeah. Hey.
Can I talk?
Yeah, go. Hi. Yeah, for sure. Hi.
Sorry, hang on. Where's my little video thing? Can someone undo my video? I can't undo my video. If someone wants to, oh, here we go. Start video. Sorry, no, I can't do it. Okay, you can just listen to me. Oh, here I am. Hi.
Hi.
So why is a couple of things. It's to create little cheer squads of like 4 people, okay. Each do 15-second videos that auto merges into a 1-minute montage and gets sent to the person who needs the encouragement. So you've got your own little personal cheer squad. So that's an important piece. It's not just solo videos.
Yeah.
And I want them to live on in the You've Got This app as a little keepsake treasure trove. So every time you're feeling socially isolated and you need to hear from your 3 best friends, you've got this 1-minute injection of feel good to go back to, rather than getting lost in 10 different
No, yeah.
or an email, or did I see it on
Yeah.
YouTube? Like one place that all your encouragement's held.
Okay, I dig it. Also, that's cool. I wasn't like when I was like, what? Because I'm just asking.
No.
It's
Oh, good.
easy.
No, no.
It's easy.
Challenge.
Okay, but I mean, I think that you're gonna. I mean, you might want to have to. You might have to run like it's a full. It's not a mobile web, but it's an actual app that is downloadable.
Mhm.
Okay, so you definitely want to focus on your app store like listings first, which I'm sure that you maybe thought like it's like SEO, but it's what is it? There's a ASO,
Yeah.
like Apple search optimization. So
Yeah.
focus on that piece first. Put together I'd put together some like rough kind of almost like teaser videos or ads that then you would share, but you're most likely going to end up having to run ads around app installs at some stage, right? Off the hop, though, what you want to do is like have testimonials of people talking about it, and
Right.
and like get those pieces and have like you shoot stuff and be like, this is why we made this thing,
Right.
like telling that like story. But then, what are the other peripheral pieces that you can kind of tap into, right? Like what are those like thought leadership pieces? What are those other things that you can kind of either build and or share? Because I think about it in two veins, right? You want user acquisition, but you also want to be known as like, okay, this right. So
Yeah,
like
like
I think
digital,
about
I
that
want to
stuff.
be like digital wellness, technology for good, using technology to connect as humans. Great. So I'm on the right path with that. I just don't know who my early adopters are. Like, who are the people most likely to want to encourage others? Is it mothers, or is it, I mean, everyone wants to encourage people, but do they?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what you got. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you want you need what I would do is like I conduct like user research around it, like try and chat with people, and get people to go through your app and tell you what they think,
Yeah,
right?
survey. Great. Got it.
Like,
Great.
but yeah, but I would I'd go one step further and like watch them use it,
Okay.
and then ask them afterwards in a like, I mean, in that it might not be you, right? Like you might want to have somebody that's not you do it, so that it's like like there are a bunch of like, you can go out and get UX researchers that'll do this for you, but you can also kind of conduct it on your own, but give it to a couple different people to understand like what the demographic is, but also like go out and spend $5 a day on Facebook promoting the app and see who picks it up.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I'm doing a bit
and then from there, yeah, like that's how you're gonna, who that demographic is though, I'm not that strong. My base isn't that. If you were like, how do I get a bunch of people to start small businesses or enterprise businesses on an e-commerce platform, we could talk about that for a while. But that's my experience.
No, thank you. That's great. I don't want to take up too much time, but thank you.
Yeah, no, that's
Amazing.
okay.
Got a lot out of it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
You're changing the world in Australia as you speak. Yeah.
Great.
Brent, looking at the time, I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll try to wrap up soon by 8:30. I know everyone's still on it, very engaged, but we can go on all night, right?
I mean, we could. Geez, are there 37 new messages? Should I be like, okay, little nuggets, da-da-da. Okay, people saying thanks, cool, informative, email, just tweet me or something. That's why I put my handle in there. 100%. Okay, amazing. People are being very nice.
Yeah, Monique was next. So she was asking, as a business with a low budget for ads, do you recommend not spending on ads at all if it isn't effective on a low budget, and just putting all of your energy and time into making valuable content?
Yeah, it'll sound counterintuitive because I literally spend money on these platforms for a living, but I'm not a fan of paid, because you can do everything organically. It's just a little bit more of a struggle, right? The hard part is that if you jump to paid and you need it, then it becomes like a drug. where you don't build up the muscle that you need to organically drive it. And you can organically drive any business to any level. It's just you need to do it well consistently. So yeah, you can spend, but just don't get too caught up in it, right? I'd say like try and flex your muscles and at least like pick up the organic social side, because that will inform a lot of the other marketing pieces that you'll need as well, right? If you can figure out how to do social well, then it generally means that you can figure out how to do most of the other stuff well, because social is really hard because of content, and like just content and copy and website and alone is a difficult grind. And then when you start to add in the complexities of a paid apparatus on top of that, it gets harder. So yeah, like I'd say like build up your organic and see if you can do it and kind of get that going, and then maybe like layer paid on. And it depends on, you could run video view campaigns that aren't going to get you what you need if it's a purchase on your site, or you could drive like website traffic and just try and drive people to your site and then hope that they come through, right? And your average costs per click will be 30 cents, and you'll get, for $5 a day, you get however many comes out of that, and there you go. Hopefully that's good. I know we're at 8:30.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a good answer. I know that the questions and comments keep coming in, but definitely if you didn't get your question answered tonight, please feel free to reach out to Brent directly. I know he shared his contact with you, and definitely they will be in the slides as well that we shared. But Brent, I really do want to thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and the tips, and it's so much great information. I know reading all of the comments there that everyone appreciated so much. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I know. Jesus, it like kicked off, didn't it? Okay. I'm sorry that I didn't get to read all of the things, and if I didn't answer your questions, like feel free to tweet me or something. I guess tweeting is probably, you can follow me on Instagram, but like it's just my kids. You don't want to see that. It's not a but yeah, like if you hit me up on Twitter, I will try and respond. I had a good time because I just yelled into a basement for 2.5 hours. But thank you very much for having me. And I hope it was helpful.